So last Thursday, you and I came in here and did a preview for the South Carolina game. So look, we're going through a bye week. There's so many things that we need to discuss. And we kind of talked about the South Carolina game a little bit earlier than maybe we would in a normal, obviously more than what we do on a normal week. We normally on Thursday go through keys to victory. But I want to look at this game going into the week in a different light, in a different view. Let's look at it from the LSU lens, because on Thursday, we really kind of looked at it from a South Carolina lens. Listen, you're really good defensively. You've sent a lot of pressure. You got one of, if not the best edge guy in the country in Dylan Stewart. Guys, their safety room is absolutely fantastic. Their corners are a little leaky, but their safety room is fantastic. Their linebacking room has been fantastic. Oh, and by the way, guys, I just think they kind of keep replenishing sometimes and how nasty their interior defensive tackles have been when you watch them on film. The opposite was for South Carolina. Man, Mike Shula's had a really tough time so far this season offensively. Lenore Sellers went out against Vanderbilt with a concussion, and then they went up against and they lost against Vandy. Then they faced Missouri, and then he didn't even throw a pass. He didn't even run the ball, until the third quarter. They didn't even design a run for Lenore Sellers until the third quarter. He sat in the pocket in that game and completely absolutely decimated Missouri secondary. But we looked at it from all the advantages and disadvantages from the South Carolina lens. Tonight, let's look at it from the LSU side of things. Guys, today I went to the press conference for Brian Kelly. Guys, most of you have been here long enough to know, you pretty much know my rule. I don't know if there's ever really anything pressing for me to go there because, guys, he's going to get asked what he's going to get asked. But this past week, during the bye week, I did a lot of soul searching on what I think has been going on through the first 5 weeks. What are some of the issues that LSU faces, not only this season so far offensively, but what they may face against South Carolina and what South Carolina does very well? And it was very apparent to me when you just go back and watch, and we've talked about this, but we haven't really gone in great detail, listen, can you run the football? No. Are you great at protecting Garrett all the time? No, not really. Not really. I mean, it's not like he's getting sacked a lot. He's been under a lot of pressure. Not really a lot of pressure, to be honest with you. Guys, you're still in the top 20 when it comes to pressure rate. So as bad as that offensive line has been, Garrett's still in the top 20. You're still in the top 20 and not allowing pressures. With that being said, we all know you can't run the ball. And the question has been all week, well, how do you fix it? What came very apparent to me this week is I just don't know if during the game, during the series for LSU, you have a great flow. Blake, no duh, we can't do anything. But it's specifically in the passing game. Guys, I really do believe that you're rotating way too much personnel in and out of the lineup, way too much. I think it's become an issue. I think that when you put a unit out there and you go 11 personnel as an example, you need to stay in that same 11 personnel for a couple of plays instead of the constant rotation that you're seeing from Cortez Hankton. Well, Blake, how do you know it's Cortez? Because I see him on the sidelines literally every week deciding the personnel of the play call that's coming in. That's how I know. This isn't Joe Sloan saying, hey, put in so-and-so. No, this is a personnel decision, especially when you come at receiver. And I think more than anything, you've become very predictable on what you're doing. Like as an example, when Kyle Parker and Nick Anderson come into the game, guys, there's a pretty strong chance that we're running the football. Actually, there's a very strong chance that we're running the football. Pretty sure teams have picked up on that when you're not throwing the ball really to Kyle Parker or Nick Anderson. And then when you want to throw the football around, well, then here comes Barryon, here comes Aaron, here comes Chris, here comes Xavion. And teams know what you're going to do. So today, in something that through the last 5 weeks or first 5 games of the season, it is very apparent to me that your rotation is clearly and we talked about this a little, but not ad nauseum. It is clear to me that teams know with the personnel that you have coming in and out that you're doing what you're doing. Now, Brian Kelly said last week in his last press conference, guys, I know we can't run the ball. And I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much telling you what he said. Guys, we can't really run the ball right now. But our passing game simply has got to be better. Because, guys, I think 3 weeks ago, he says it's a timing issue with Garrett because of the injury. Last week, it was because Garrett just had an off game. You go into a bye week and Garrett's off. So what are you going to do to change things? Now, I'm going to play this clip for you because this is what I asked Brian Kelly today in reference to, hey, you said that there's a passing game issue. Well, what is it? So we asked him.
Coach, last week you talked about wanting to see some differences in the passing game. Yeah. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that? And then secondly, would you want to see the receiver rotation maybe in series be reduced, or is that what you were talking about? Can you just elaborate a little bit more?
I think last week or 2 weeks ago, you saw less personnel moving in and out of the game at the wide receiver position. We were setting almost every play for a particular player, and in some instances that's good, but sometimes you don't get the flow of the game, right? There's two things going on. So I think we felt more comfortable what the rotation was last week in terms of our receivers being in and out of the game. And look, I think at the end of the day, it's more explosive plays. We were 1 of 7 when we threw the ball down the field. We've got to hit some of those shots that we came up short on. Those are big plays that usually led themselves for us to touchdowns. So big plays down the field, we've got to hit on those. And then I think finding a nice rhythm offensively where we're not, going over the boards every time, on a shift change. We've got to be a little bit more consistent with our flow.
So basically, yes. Cortez has got to do better at this rotation and keeping the 3 to 4 guys in that you want. If you're going to run with Barrel Sharp at tight end and take Trades Green off the field, by all means, go ahead and do it if that's what you so choose. You got to get a formation of Berryon, Anderson, Hilton, Xavion, and stay with it. Because if timing's your issue, nobody on this team has more timing than those 3 guys with Garrett Nussmeier, especially Chris Hilton. They've been here together literally the entire time. So when I'm talking about, and you're talking about timing, when you're talking about issues of hitting the deep shots, Brian Kelly did not have to bring up, hey, guys, we got to push the ball down the field some. It's exactly what he just said here in his press conference. Okay, sounds good. Well, then you got to get your speed out there and stop going in 12 personnel where you're putting both tight ends in the slot. You got to give your playmakers a chance in space. You need, like I think of a couple of years ago, where did the slot fade go? Where did the slot fade go? You ran it all during camp with Chris Hilton. Just newsflash, when we would come in here and talk about Chris Hilton had a massive day, Chris Hilton caught a couple of touchdowns, guys, he's lined up in either the slot or at the far right boundary and running fade routes. Well, if you're not having success, and if you're not having success at throwing the ball down the field, I have a God's honest question. Why don't you make the throw shorter for Garrett with an inside slot fade to the fastest guy maybe in college football, who hasn't really gotten a chance to prove that for this season? The rotation has got to get cleaned up because I don't think along the offensive line as a whole that you really get things cleaned. I know that we want this offense to change and be better, and I think that on the offensive line, they continuously can continue to be better. I'm not expecting them guys to go out there and run or have a game where, quite honestly, that they're running for 150 yards. Because you can't do it against Southeastern. I sure as hell am not going to believe that you can do it against some of these other SEC teams, because you can't. So now the passing game and explosive plays and big playmakers have got to touch the football. Aaron, Berryon, Chris, Xavion have been what has been, per the stats, your most productive players. If you want to throw Nick in there for a series, by all means, do it for a series. You can't keep rotating everybody in and out because things start getting confused. You don't get the play call, and it's too much. Simplify. Hankton and company have got to start reducing things. And quite frankly, your head coach is going out there saying, we got to hit some balls downfield. And you can say, well, Blake, we have Garrett. Hold on. I'm getting in that in just a moment. But the God's honest truth is the rotation has got to come down. Secondly, with all due respect, if you're going to win this week against this team, so circling it back to South Carolina, they will allow you to take stuff underneath. Meaning, I think teams from here on out are going to do a lot of the same things that you saw 2 weeks ago, just not as drastic as what Pete Golding did. But when I look at South Carolina and I look at all the things that happened to them this season in the past game that had lots of success, like what did Bo Prabula do? Well, Bo Prabula took everything underneath on some of these drag routes and it ate their asses alive. It's the stuff that you're missing on right now constantly from your quarterback position and your offensive coordinator not calling enough of it. I don't know if I see the creativity enough in the passing game to where, hey, why don't you run a drag with one of the fastest guys in college football and run a pick? Kind of what Clemson did to you, where you can run it behind the line of scrimmage, like the screen you kind of did, I guess, to Aaron Anderson. Where are some of those things at? This week versus South Carolina, the middle of the field yet again against a team is going to be wide ass open. Now, 2 weeks ago versus against Ole Miss, on Thursday of that week, I said, listen, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of Pete Golding and who he is not only as a person, but as a play caller. And we talked about, guys, they're going to back out on you. They're going to back out on you constantly. And they're not going to do anything special. They're going to keep running the same stuff that had success on you a year ago until you prove that you can change it. You better hit the stuff underneath and methodically wear them down and use your level of depth to beat them. That, please go back and listen. That was their key to victory. Well, you didn't do it. But Brian Kelly said you got to start hitting deep shots. And I wonder if that is a sign of, hey, man, if Garrett can't do it, now what? If he can't do it and he's not back to his normal self and he can't push the ball down the field, well, do you make a move? I was the only person I think the last 2 weeks to really, other than asking about Michael Van Buren if he's taking snaps, about what he's seen from him, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But there's only really a couple of things here, guys, that we have to expect. Number one, I don't know how your timing gets better during a bye week when your quarterback's not throwing the ball to the receivers. The VR is great. I know he's just kind of really now just starting to use it. And yes, we'll back that up with any amount of sourcing that we need to. And I promise you we will win it. I know all the mental reps were there. But timing is not always just a mental thing, but a physical thing. This week for Garrett is going to be crucial to find that. Is he getting closer? Is he close to 100%? Because if he is, okay, well then let's see how this thing rolls out. Let's see how this thing plays out. Maybe you start getting to a week where, hey man, he hasn't played a game in 2 weeks. We didn't push him in the first week, and now he needs to be ready to go. And Brian Kelly said as much in reference to, hey guys, you get to the bye week, we should be pretty much smooth sailing of what he is and who he's going to be. Well, if that's the case, then here we go. But I don't know. I don't know if he's not going to look like what he did versus Ole Miss. Is he still that level of hurt? I don't know. But you have a head coach calling out his receivers coach saying, yeah, that rotation needs to kind of be dwindled down, and we got to get a rhythm of a game. And in the rhythm of that game, we got to start hitting deep shots. We were 1 for 7 on deep shots. The only deep one you hit was to Nick Anderson on an in route for 21 yards. We got to start pushing the ball down the field here, and we got to start making some plays for the passing game, or we're in trouble. Because, guys, we're not finding a run game. South Carolina is going to take a lot of things away from you. Where I think they're really good at their safety unit, I think you can get over on their corners. I still think that your talent at receiver outweighs what they have at corner. Can you call a game and ref that is good enough to be able to attack that? Can you throw the ball when it's called to a Chris Hilton or a Barryon Brown when they put you in man-to-man coverage? Or even if they back out, can you make the right throw and be accurate enough to succeed? Because, guys, there's only really 2 things that you need to do in this game to me, that I'm trying the first thing. If South Carolina, from a DB perspective, is playing off, sounds good. Quick slant, hitch, quick out, whatever you got. If you want to give me 7 to 9 to 10 yards and you want to play that off of me, sounds great. We are going to methodically move the ball down the field. Guys, it's not that you can't do it. You did it against Arkansas. Arkansas played really off of you. You hitched them to death all the way down the field, and it was really impressive. Do it again. Or what South Carolina has done a lot of, playing quarters, playing man. Those boundary corners do not have the speed that you can throw out there. And no, I'm not talking about Xavion. You got to find ways to get Barryon Brown the football. You got to find ways, and I know you've tried, but you haven't been successful a lot of times in getting Aaron Anderson the football. And, guys, I got to be real with you. Whether it's going to be Xavion or Chris and you want to rotate those 2 out specifically on what they do, sounds great to me. I don't care. But you're going to have to be a little bit more explosive. And going 12 personnel where you have 2 tight ends in the slot, quite honestly, isn't going to do it. It's not going to do it. What is Garrett Nussmeier this week? Who is he? Does Garrett respond to the level of adversity that has been is right now at the highest order that he's ever gone through in his career? If it's a health thing and he's coming out of it, which we haven't talked to him, but per Briankelly, apparently seems like he's coming out of it. Either he is or he isn't. I don't know. What is the status of him and what is he going to look like offensively is really the biggest question. Overcoming the adversity of being hurt, guys, there's not really anything if he is hurt. There's not really a lot of things he can do other than give it time and give it rest and let it heal. But if he is ready to go, your season's starting to become on the line here. Did you put in the work this week during the bye week that's going to lead your team to victory? You got a lot of questions you got to answer. And quite honestly, I hope he wakes up pissed off on Saturday, ready to kill somebody. Because that's the level of that is the way that champions respond. I don't think you can run the ball on South Carolina. I quite simply, I just don't. You can't run the ball on a lot of teams. I'm not assuming that you can run the ball here. If you find it, then great. Maybe Carius Curne being moved to guard, which we said on Thursday. Look, the way that Carius Curne, and we kind of hinted at this, the way that Carius Curne played, I think they're going to play Weston Davis. That means Carius Curne's getting moved. You got an injury at left guard, go put his big ass there, which I've been screaming from the rafters since camp to put Curne at left guard. Maybe Carius Curne does give you some boost, and you run behind the big fella, which is going to be our keys to victory if he is there on Saturday. Run behind the big fella. Let's see what we got here. Maybe things get better. I'm not expecting you to do that. So it falls on one thing. Guys, I have completely written off this run game until you can prove to me otherwise that you have any pulse whatsoever. I've written it off. I hope Caden Durham or Harlan Berry can hit a long run. I do. I pray to God they can. I have no faith that you're going to be able to do it, nor should I. So you're going to have to fix things in the passing game, and you're going to have to keep the same rotation out there and get the right personnel in there. Why you've had a situation where Pro Football Focus comes out and does the receiver analysis on the personnel packages. How in the world through 5 games has Barrion Brown and Chris Hilton been on the field together twice? How? I don't know. What I do know is even if you don't throw the ball to Hilton, guys, they got to back off. They must. They don't have a choice. And you're not hitting stuff underneath. What Ole Miss did to you in dropping 8, Garrett should have known, I'm just going to nickel and dime them down the field and be patient. And I felt as if, and here's how, before we switch to defense here, or I got 2 more things on offense before we switch to defense. But I felt like offensively, you're just pressing way too much. This team to me offensively feels like they're hearing the outside noise. They're hearing all the things that's going on, and how can't they? We've been a very vocal bunch on how bad things have been for you offensively. Against Ole Miss, when I look at them in the second half, I saw a team, I saw play calling, I saw a quarterback, I saw an offensive line and run game where the moment felt a little too big, where your 5th-year senior quarterback's got to know, guys, if they're dropping 8, we got to hit stuff underneath so that we have success. If teams do that to you again, newsflash, they are. Now you got to know, hey, man, I got to go to everything that's underneath and live with a 13, 14-play drive for a score and live to fight another day. So what? We're not hitting bombs over Baghdad. They're not going to allow us all game and not try to change anything and walk people up. And that's when Barrion and Chris go down. And you got to try to hit them. I don't know the health status, and guys, it will be a talking point all week. I don't know what Garrett Nussmeier is going to look like. But if he looks that way again against Ole Miss, what does Michael Van Buren look like? I don't know. But the one thing I needed to know before we go into this week from Brian Kelly more than anything, if Garrett is still hurt and he can't perform at the level that he needs to perform at, what was Michael Van Buren's week like? We asked Brian Kelly.
With Nuss being limited last week, what did you see from Michael Van Buren, that maybe in growth from when he first got here to now, and what do you think some things that maybe he needs to work on?
I think, he's beginning to command the offense the way I'd like a starter to command it, not a backup. I thought earlier in the year he commanded the offense like a backup. I want him to go in there and with confidence, with communication, and do that. And I thought he did a very good job when he was given the reins last week. So those are all really positive things because I think we see his skill set. He's got a live arm. He's got some elusiveness. He's got some grittiness to him that you can see in game situations. But, we really like Mike. We knew what we were getting in the portal. I think it's just his maturation now as a freshman coming into his own now that he's been in this program. So I thought it was a really good week for him.
So that's LSU head coach Brian Kelly on Michael Van Buren. We'll see. I don't think they're going to him, and I think they're going to give Garrett the chance here. And guys, I just got to be real. If you look a lot of the ways that you did like 2 weeks ago, you got to do something. You can't keep ramming your head up against the wall. You just can't. I think for everything that it's worth, and I've been painted with a very odd brush this week, but a lot of people have said a lot of shit about and to me. Sounds good. You can have your own opinion. I am really intrigued to see how Garrett responds because I think that it was one of the worst games that he had a couple of weeks ago, and it's not close. And pressure is either going to make diamonds or crush you. But champions find success in being the most prepared. They always have. It's what makes Brady the best. It's what makes Breeze the best. Mahomes, all those dudes. You want to be one of them. The entire team has got to be fully prepared for what they need to overcome. We'll see. We'll see. All right. A couple of other things here. Let's move to the defense from an LSU side of things. Guys, in case you haven't seen South Carolina this year, Lenore Sellers has taken a pretty massive lead. Now, his offensive line is just as bad, if not worse, than yours. And when I look at him, I see a guy who's making throws in the pocket that last year he didn't have a remote chance of hitting. Guys, what if I would have told you in the preseason that there would be a game where Lenore Sellers didn't have a rush attempt, an actual rushing attempt where he's trying to run the football until the third quarter of the game and his team would have 20-plus points in a half? Oh, well, Blake, their defense, they must have really scored a lot. They must have got a Shane Beamer ball touchdown. No. Guys, Lenore Sellers is a hell of a chess match to go up against, because if you pressure him and you don't get there and he escapes, you're in trouble. If you don't go after him right now, the shit that this dude is doing in the pocket, guys, is utterly insane. The 45-yard throw that he had in the end zone, I think it was Nick Harbor against Virginia Tech. The 52-yard bomb that he threw, deadly accurate against Missouri. The stuff that he did in the pocket against Missouri worries the outright manure out of me. Guys, I'm going after him, guns blazing, because at the end of the day, I know what he is with his legs, and I'm not giving him a chance. Now, last week, you did not, or 2 weeks ago, you did not really go after Chambliss. You didn't get a lot of pressure on him. You better not do that again. Blake Baker has not had a lot of success really containing and minimizing some of these guys that can run, whether it be last year, whether it be against Jaden Daniels, whether it be 2 weeks ago against Chambliss. That just cannot happen again, because I can live with, under pressure, Lenore Sellers making the throw. What I don't think any of us need to live with this week defensively is that he has the time to sit back there, because, guys, I'm telling you, he's 10 times better than what he was. 10 times better. You can tell that he took the offseason very, very, very seriously. Better contain his big ass. That's all I got to say. Let him beat you from the pocket. He can. Newsflash, he can. I don't think that they have the receivers to match up with your corners. They got elite speed, though. They got elite speed. And if you let Nicholas Harbor behind you, you're going night-night. You're going night-night. It's over. And they found that connection a lot this year. And I still don't think he's a polished receiver. I think Jacobs is an okay guy. But Mansour Delane is basically locking down an entire side of the field, and teams are still going to attack Pickett, and they're going to attack Woodland. I'm just telling you, Nick Harbor, they're taking a shot on DJ Pickett, and they're taking a shot with Nick Harbor on PJ Woodland. It is coming, buddy. Listen to me. I would leverage my mortgage that both of them get tested from a fade route from Nicholas Harbor on Saturday, barring if something happens to Nicholas Harbor. I would bet my entire mortgage. I wonder if FanDuel would give me odds on that. It wouldn't be good in my favor. They're coming for you.